absolutely no one. And it had been raining the past few days. There were no footprints. The grass was not pressed down. There was absolutely no sign that anyone had been there.
Well, you better be careful, Liz. I mean, have you watched Jeepers Creepers, the original one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I think I own it.
Yeah, okay. And then you look at some other ones, that creature kind of disguised itself to look like a human being. So, I mean, you could have had a shapeshifter come walking through your property and, disguising itself to look like a, young man wearing kind of a hoodie and jeans and then who knows where it went to. It, could have shifted out to where, it was transparent and you never saw it after that.
I am more inclined to feel it was probably ghost or some kind of spirit with activity that happens inside my house rather than a shapeshifter or something.
That's right. You told me something about when in a previous experience with somebody that your refrigerator slammed or did something, or a door slammed or something. Boy, if I could remember.
My refrigerator door opens and closes every few months. I will hear it open and close when I'm in a separate room, and either I know where my son is and know it's not him, or I'm home by myself. So that's pretty common. But it was actually my bedroom door opened and closed. And there was no explanation for that. Absolutely none. Because my husband had thought it was me opening and closing the door, and I thought it was him.
Yeah,
so
that would be kind of scary. I mean, if I don't know how old your house, if anybody, had died or any passed on at your house before that, but maybe have you ever researched what was there before that house was built? At least on the property?
I haven't.
Yes, you don't know. I mean, when I grew up over in West Seattle, back, in the 50s, our next door neighbor, even Seattle back in the early 50s, we're talking like around 1956, 57, right around there. Well, more like around 56. That would have been about 4 or 5. Yeah, about that. You ever watch The Real McCoys? That old TV show?
I think so.
Okay, or Green
It's
Acres,
been a long time,
or like Green Acres. Well, anyway.
Oh yes, Green Acres.
Over in towards West Seattle, Highland Park area, there was old, basically leftover farm type houses yet. I'm not joking. They had like an acre or so, and they had like chickens, and it was like an old dilapidated farmhouse next to us. And, the house my parents bought, they bought it new in 1952. I was born in 1952, but they bought it new. And, that was the first new house in that whole block area. I mean, all the other ones dated back, 100 years old or more. I mean, before they were being torn down and rebuilt new houses. But the strange thing happened is that the guy who owned the house decided to go into his little shed, which I used to be a little kid. He used to chase me out. Me and my friends would go over there, and sneak in his shed because of all that fancy old tools. It was really cool. Anyway, he hung himself in his shed. And I guess, he was there for a couple of days before somebody discovered he was dead. Well, anyway, they tore the house down. They tore everything out and built a new house there. And the person who bought the house, the family bought it, we got to know them because they were next door neighbors. They kept saying that strange things, they heard strange noises and things would be moving. And, till I moved out, at one point in my life, that was going on, still going on there. And it just makes you wonder, like in your case, on your property, that maybe something, prior, before you moved in or before that home you have was built, maybe there was another, house there or something, or somebody died, passed on or something.
We do know that there was an old house or homestead here before this house was built. Unfortunately, part of the problem in Missouri is there were so many farms, homesteads, and things, even prior to the Civil War, where there's no record. So there's so much stuff that could have happened here that there's absolutely no way of ever finding out.
Well, tell me if I'm right or wrong, too. I mean, you're an ex-sheriff deputy. Now, when you get out, like in Missouri, and a lot of stuff around the Civil War area, even after that, right? People would have houses. Their relatives die. They would basically plant them on the property. In the case of the Civil War, they would go through after the battle and just bury them where they were at. So you don't know what could have been on that property, buried, and.
And that's exactly it. And every so often after hard rains, there will be a report of a body being found, skeleton being found. And it can date back to the Civil War and even before the Civil War. There have been cases where it's been a Native American who had been buried and washed out. And, the skeleton was there for 200 to 300 years.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's just, yeah. I mean, there's no way of telling.
Now, when your refrigerator would open and close, right, and when it did you ever notice anything that moved in the refrigerator when that would happen, or just the door opening and closing? Just like maybe they were curious what this thing is.
It just opens and closes. And the funny thing is, it's not just that I hear it. When it happens, usually at least one of my dogs will look toward the kitchen because they hear it too.
Now, do you have any cats at all, or just dogs?
I have cats and dogs.
Now, tell me if I'm right or wrong. Have you ever noticed cats will be like looking at something in your house, for example, at something, and their eyes and head is turning, like they're following something, and you're looking, and it's like nothing there? Have you ever noticed that with your cats?
I have, and I've caught my dogs doing it a few times too.
I'm just kind of wondering if they can see things that we can't see. I mean, they supposedly don't see colors. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've read, that they don't see colors. But I mean, in cases like, but my daughter was a little girl. She had an imaginary friend, and she would be talking to her friend. But we had cats. We've always had cats, and we've had a couple dogs, But the cats would always be like in the room, right? And they would be looking not at my daughter as my daughter was talking to her imaginary friend. They'd be looking, and I'm saying we had 3 cats, and they would be out there, and they'd all be looking at the same direction. So and it was funny, like one of the cats would turn its head and the other cats would turn their head like they were following something moving, in the living room.
I've seen not my cats in the house do that with, all looking at something that we don't see, but growing up, I have seen cats do that. Yeah.
Well, I just was curious because if you have something going on like with your bedroom door opening and closing or the refrigerator opening and closing, I'm just wondering if you ever, when you notice that, if your animals are detecting anything.
I haven't noticed with the cats. They never seem to be in the room when it happens, or at least not where I can see them. But my dogs definitely recognize, hey, I know that sound, and look toward it.
I don't know. I would, and I'm not trying to scare you, Liz, because I mean, you're an ex-deputy. You're, I don't think you would be scared, but I mean, I would be more, a ghost. I kind of would, in a way, would maybe rule that out, because if whatever it is wearing like a sweatshirt or a hoodie or something like that, I'm really into right now reading about shape shifters, and maybe you got something like that going and has happened on your property or something, or, could be. I don't have you
know,
shaking now, do I?
It's really possible.
Hopefully I don't have you shaking.
No.
You're in the car, you know. I mean, what would you do right now if you're in the car, right? And if you're sitting there talking to me and all of a sudden a skeleton head pops up on the passenger side of your window of the passenger door, you'd freak out.
I would. I'm not sure freaking out would be a good explanation. It would be more of, okay, who is this and why are they here? I usually stay pretty calm.
Not me. I'd pee my pants and run away.
I've had enough things happen where it's just like, oh, great, now what? So I usually stay pretty calm, even when it's something that most people are afraid of.
Now, in your county, too, again, I'm going by memory now, I am getting senile. At least one of my kids said, hey, Dad, you're senile. Because I can't find my car keys once in a while, okay? I mean, what is wrong with putting your car keys in the freezer once in a while? Hey, it's no big deal. But getting back, didn't you tell me one time, too, in your county, there was a sighting of a Bigfoot crossing a road or something where a motorist seen it or somebody saw it?
Multiple people saw it. It was actually crossing just north of the county seat, just outside the city limits. And it was crossing what's relatively major road. And it kind of got stuck on the center line because of traffic going both ways. And it did finally lunge across and go up the embankment and on out.
Boy,
and off the road.
I bet the sheriff's department got a lot of
But
phone
we've
calls
also
on that.
had the city police actually were the ones who kept getting the phone calls about it, and they did get multiple calls.
Wow, has there been much activity of Bigfoot in your area at all?
There's been a lot, including on the Army base. I live between Fort Leonard Wood Army Base and Lake of the Ozarks.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I'm surrounded by National Forest and Ozark Mountains, and we've actually had multiple reports on the base of Bigfoot.
Well, in your forest system, too, if I remember right, too, they had a lot of people have gone missing, just totally, unaccountable for. I don't know if you ever checked into that.
They do in the National Forest right around me locally. We don't have a lot of people who just go out in the forest and disappear. Usually they are found. We have, in Missouri, we have a lot of caves. We have actually one of the highest, if not the highest number of caves of any state in the United States. And we have a lot of sinkholes. And unfortunately, we had an incident a few years ago where a soldier was turkey hunting and he stepped just right and dropped down into one of the sinkholes and was killed.
Oh, wow.
And the space that he fell into was not even 2 feet wide. I mean, it was just, he stepped perfectly and just dropped straight down.
That, up where I live, where I used to live, up by Auburn, Washington, up in Enumclaw, or Buckley area. Yeah, it was Buckley area. There was an old town that disbanded around 1910. It was a coal mining town, and it existed for about 20 years. They brought the railroad up to it. They did mining. They had a 800-foot shaft, went straight down to the mine. But the problem is, it was on property that a lot of people, it's been closed, since 1900s, but people still go up there and hike and do all that stuff. And occasionally they would disappear. And they did cover up the main shaft finally back about 30 years ago. They put railroad tracks across it and steel plates on it. But they made the assumption that they must be a lot of where they put air vents in, for the mine.